In Titus 2, older women are commanded to teach what is good so they can help younger women love their husbands and children. On today's show, you'll hear from older women who will share timeless, relevant biblical wisdom and personal, profound life experiences to help answer your questions and teach what God says is good so you can be the wife and mother you were created to be. Welcome to another episode of Older Women Likewise.
Good evening and welcome to Older Women Likewise. We are so glad that you are with us this evening, and we hope that you enjoy our program this evening. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the benefits, the blessings, the burdens of caregivers. And we know that caregiving is something that we all are going to have some interaction with. For example, Rosalind Carter said that there are only four kinds of people in the world, that there are those who have been caregivers, that there are those who are caregivers, there are those who will be caregivers, and there are those who will need caregivers. And so caregiving is something that we're familiar with. We were taken care of as children. Spouses take care of one another, and parents take care of children. And above all, Christians are taken care of by God. As God's children, we are familiar with being taken care of. And we need to, what I want us to talk about this evening is about how we can be good caregivers. And we want to talk about our responsibilities first. God has given us responsibilities for taking care of those in our family and those in our circle, I guess, people that we know who need care. First Timothy chapter 5, verses 4 and verses 8 and verses 16 tell us in verse 4, if any widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show piety at home and to repay their parents, for this is good and acceptable before God. If your parent is widowed, it is a time you can repay them for all of the care that they gave to you as a child. And so this caregiving is a wonderful thing for that. Another verse 8, tells us a responsibility. If anyone does not provide for his own, and especially those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. What a terrible example to those of unbelievers around us to see a Christian not taking care of his own or her own family. And so this is a responsibility that God has given us. And again, in verse 16, as we know, this chapter talks a good bit about that one that we call the widow indeed, who doesn't have anyone to take care of her, and how we need to take care of her as well. But in this case, in this verse 16, again, if any believing man or woman has widows, let them relieve them, and do not let the church be burdened, that it may relieve those who are really widows. And so we have that responsibility. God has given us the responsibility to be a caregiver for widows among us, in our family, in our household. In our household. But God has also given us promise for taking care of our parents. And we'll focus this evening, while there are caregivers for children with disabilities, for spouses who are ill, who have disability, those that have need of care. Tonight, we want to pretty much focus on caregivers for parents. And God has promised us, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. So we know that if we honor our parents, that things are going to go well for us. And we know that this is a promise of God. There are many blessings that we get as caregivers for those who are caring for parents or elderly. the blessing of learning the lesson that for caring that one who is sick or who is dying. We learn that life is short, time is limited. We, as younger people, we think, oh, we've got so many years. There's so much time. We've got plenty of time to do whatever we want to do, say what we want to do. But as we get older, we know that that time is limited. We see that we're more halfway, more than halfway as we go. Our minister preacher tells us if you can double, if you multiply your age times two and you don't think you're going to live that long, you're more than halfway done, he says. But another blessing we see from caregiving is that we can see that person, perhaps their unrealized dreams, the things they wish they had done earlier in life. And it's a lesson to us to do those things that we think, well, we should do, we could do, we ought to do, we want to do, and not wait too long. And I'm reminded of the scripture in Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 2 that tells us it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. And Cindy, we're so glad you're able to get that internet so you could join us this evening.
Me too.
And so glad to have you with us. Hated to start without you. It hurt my heart, but you
It's
know.
all good. It's all good. Happy to be joining you, Isla.
So do you have something to join, to add to now at this point, or you want to
Not yet,
hold off
sweetie.
for a little bit?
Not yet. I'm still learning.
Okay, good deal. Okay, well, we'll keep on and look at our PowerPoint I prepared. One thing, when you are caregiving, you learn to enjoy the simple joys, the simple pleasures of life, because when you are doing hundreds of things in a day, sometimes just getting things done, you're just so busy that you don't stop to, as the quote goes, smell the roses. But when you are giving care to someone whose world has gotten smaller in the sense that they're not able to go here and go there, like Cindy traveling all over, there's those small joys of a crisp apple. I remember my mother always liked a good crisp apple, or just a good Coca-Cola that was good and sparkly. She really liked that. And just those small joys, we learn to really focus on those and to enjoy them. And just we slow down and enjoy, have those joys with the person that we're taking care of. Another blessing that we will get from being a caregiver is that we can give a precious gift to someone that we love. As the scripture we read earlier, we're repaying our parents, for the care that they gave to us. And caregiving is such a wonderful way to show how much we love this person, because we're really giving not just a gift of money or something we've bought, but we're giving our time, we're giving our effort, our energy, we're really putting thought into it as well. Caregiving is an opportunity just to spend time with the person that we love and not feel like we've got to go here and go there and get this done and do this. We can just be with that person. And that's such a joy oftentimes for parents as I get older. It's just such a joy just to be with the kids and just to be with my son and daughters, and not feel like we've got to get things done and go places and do things. And that's something we get as caregivers.
Isla, some of my most precious memories with my mom, I remember I would put on her favorite music, from her teens and her 20s. And it was a lot of that big band, kind of late 40s, 50s music. And it would lighten her mood. I have so many precious memories like what you're talking about. Or I'd put on old movies for her that she remembered watching in her youth. Sometimes it would be an opportunity to read scriptures aloud to her while she just closed her eyes and soaked it all up. So yeah, or just taking her out. Sometimes their brains will get in kind of a rut of depression or anxiety, and a change of scenery, like let me take you out for an ice cream cone or something. So
Right.
I agree, Isla. It's a really special time with your parents to create kind of a beautiful ending chapter when you're
Mhm.
caregiving at the very end.
And the memories that we have from having done that are just so precious to us.
Yeah,
Those are almost always happy memories when we have that blessing of caring for someone that we love.
yeah,
Uh, and caregiving, as I have here, is the purest form of love and compassion that there is. Jesus washed the disciples' feet, and I know there's a lot of other lessons to be drawn, but he did this from love for them. He did this service of caregiving because he loved them, and he wanted to leave that as an example for us to care for, to love, and to care for one another.
hmm,
Oh, we would like to switch to maybe the more practical. How can you be a good caregiver? And there are so many. I want to say tips, suggestions, things to do. Being patient, patient is really
yeah,
important. Be
yeah,
patient, if nothing else. But listen and work together to solve a problem, and not let me tell you what you need to do. But
right,
work together on it, because usually you have time, and just you can have time to find a solution to a problem or a situation that you might have. It is oftentimes social interaction is needed, and being with you, it can be limiting, and so we can encourage our parent to spend some time with others,
hmm,
others in the church, others in social activities, so that it's good for them. It's also good for us. I wrote down here, be proactive.
hmm.
I was telling my daughter the other day, getting older, I used to think it was just kind of a steady decline. It's not. You
Uh-huh.
go along and then you fall off a cliff, and then you
Ah,
fall off another cliff, And so it just doesn't, it's not steady. And so we can't always see where that falling off the cliff is going to happen. But where we can, where we begin to see things are changing, then rather than wait until there's an emergency situation, make plans and make changes ahead of time.
yeah.
A person is unsteady on their feet, so do something about the rugs, the throw
Hmm.
rugs in the house, that sort of thing. And
One idea, Isla, along your keeping them socially engaged. One thing on a practical level that worked for my mother is she was very, very attached to her congregation there at the South Salem Church of Christ. And so we asked her, what's your ideal amount of visits? Because sometimes it can be overdone or underdone. And every person has a different kind of level of social needs, right? And
right.
so she told us about how often she'd really enjoy connecting with a friend. And we asked the ladies there to do kind of like a sign up thing. So she could even have the
Oh,
joy of anticipating a visit, you know.
right,
She knew someone was
right.
coming over tomorrow, or, she could already start enjoying it. So on a practical level, it's okay to organize something like that, like a visitation schedule with friends stopping by.
Well, and that's an excellent point, because sometimes we just are expecting people to somehow intuitively know when they should come and what they should
Uh-huh.
do. Whereas when you just lay it out for them, this is what mom would like, a visit every Thursday morning. Could you come? That
Yeah,
makes it so much, and people want to see her and want to do, but they don't want to be a bother, and so
yeah,
forth. So that's a wonderful suggestion. I love that suggestion.
good.
Another thing, and it's really important, is you've got to care for yourself to avoid burnout. One statistic I read said that most seniors go into an assisted living or or a nursing home not because they have not because their needs have changed so much, but because the caregiver is burnt out and just can't do it anymore. So it's a long haul. It's take time for yourself, do things for yourself, and above all, ask for help. Like Cindy's suggestion there, ask for help. people want to help you, but you have to be the one sometimes asking for help. You'll get offers, but don't let yourself feel like you've got to do everything 100%. Ask for help. And another point too is that communication is critical. When you're looking, as you look at this list that I have here, I should have put this one first. Make at the bottom, make preserving trust and keeping your relationship intact your priority.
Yeah.
And you do that through communication, don't you think, Cindy?
Oh, yeah. 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 Warm communication that happens not during the times of stress,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, in those calmer moments, learning what the preferences are and
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah. Great
Yeah,
ideas.
absolutely. Yeah. You've got to let your parent know that you love them, and that's why you're doing it. Not of a sense of obligation because God says I have to, but because you love them. And
Mm-hmm.
parents who are being cared for, let your children know you appreciate what they do for you. They
Mm-hmm.
may not hear it enough times, but to continue to communicate your wishes, what you need, what they need, and be sure that you are listening. And that active and sometimes the responsive listening is responsive listening can get kind of irritating after a while. So what you're saying is,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm
I
saying? After a
agree.
while, it's like,
I
but
agree.
but sometimes that's what you need if you're not sure that you
Right.
are understanding.
Right.
And so those are really good. I think things, it's communication is so important. But
Well, and
another, go ahead.
I guess I would also throw in there's the verbal communication, but there's also, and boy, I know it's exhausting. So everybody's exhausted. Maybe you barely got sleep tonight. So everybody's running on fumes. But and this is really, really challenging. But even facial expressions, body
Mm-hmm.
language, tone of voice, you really want to avoid your tone of voice and your body language and such to communicate like this is ridiculous. Sometimes you're going to feel or like you
Mm-hmm.
don't get it or this is disgusting or whatever. You want to have it more like your eyes are softened, your face is
Right.
full of that love for them, and
Right.
let's just have mercy.
That's
Let's have
wonderful.
mercy. Remember to get back in touch with that this is a beautiful time for that gentle and quiet spirit to come and flow out of your heart toward your parent or the other person that you're caring for. So body language too,
Perfect.
tone of voice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very good. Beyond, because sometimes your body language or your face says something different
Yes,
than what
ma'am.
your voice is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, and another, in my researching for this, another point that I came across is treat one another like adults. It is
Hmm.
so hard as a child to treat your parent sometimes as an adult, or rather, I'm sorry, it's hard for parents to treat their children like adults because they've always been your children. I was
Right.
telling one of my kids, when my mother was 85 and I was 63 or 4, she still said, now, she was still talking about my child, and I said, I'm grown, but it's just what we do. It's just natural. But
Yeah.
as parents whose child is taking care of them, then treat them like they're grown, like they have some sense. Listen to what they have to say. Consider it as you would that of another adult. And children, when you're put in that position of caring for your parent, it feels like you're parenting them. That's really awkward. That's
Yeah.
really, really awkward. But work at it to
Hmm.
always treat them like a grown person. Listen to what they have to say. Again, that communication, and to take into account what they want and they need. And remember, they have thought. They can make decisions. And again, when you get into dementia, things about
Yeah.
dementia and so forth, that changes things a bit. But
Yeah.
oftentimes we're just talking about that physical care that's needed.
Right. But I think your point, even with in dementia patients, your point, I think, also still holds true that you don't want to have almost like a condescending sort of tone
Mm-hmm.
or
Right.
patronizing, I guess is what we'd say, like, because it kind of is a little bit of an insult to their intelligence. And so,
Right.
yeah, you make a good point.
Yeah. Um, and with whether a person is mentally stable or dementia, either
Yeah.
one, there are going to be disagreements.
Oh, yeah.
That's just life. And we need to work on handling those disagreements. And here are some tips maybe to handle those disagreements. Number one, pray about them. Pray silent. Pray with
Yes.
yourself. Pray to God. I mean, but you don't not necessarily voice that prayer, but pray together.
Yeah.
Hold hands and say, Lord, help us
Uh-huh.
solve this problem. Pray
Yes.
about it, and staying calm really helps a lot. And I thought that waiting, if you get tired, if you're angry, if you're tired, the older person is that much more tired than you are.
Mm.
The older the person, and I'm the same way. I get old, I get tired faster, and I'm tired of a
Mm-hmm.
discussion sometimes faster
Mm-hmm.
than a younger person. So you want to wait until everybody's rested before you talk about something, if it's something that can
Okay.
wait.
Yeah.
Um, because that can make a difference. Sometimes the older person is just like, I just want to be done with this. I don't care what you do, just but then when they're not tired, they do care what you do.
Oh,
So,
right.
you've let's everybody be rested when you've got something that you've got to work on.
Yeah.
And listen to the other person to help to solve a disagreement. Any other tips, Cindy, that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of working on keeping the mood light if you can, because a lot of, especially when you're getting into dementia,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of it is subconscious that they're going on. And so keeping a mood that's light, and that's why I was bringing in like the light music and
Mm-hmm.
lighthearted music and things that bring back happy memories to their brain, anything that you have in the background. And you made a good point on like their autonomy. Like they still need to be given the choices in their life, to the best degree that you can allow that. I realize sometimes they don't, they're very out of touch with reality, but when they are in touch with some reality of letting them have what their preferences are, even when the preferences are not efficient or don't make sense in the real world. Mostly, I felt like at the end of my mother's life, I wanted to take care of her heart, her emotions, her
Mm-hmm.
feelings, that she would have a perception of that all is right with the world. So doing what you can. This is controversial. I'm going to say, what if you don't have the TV droning in negative news all day long? Because that's so anxiety producing to some, if you can. But again, if she's like, I want to listen to my news all day long, then that's the way it needs to be. But if there would be a way where there's not constantly a stream of reasons to be alarmed today. Let's
Mm-hmm.
all be alarmed
Right.
about this and that. If this is not good for, their subconscious. So
Mm-hmm.
those are my ideas.
And that's good. That's really good. We need to always be careful too that remember that our goal is not to put them in the box and do the things the way we think that they ought to be
True.
doing them, but to help them do things the way they want to do them.
True.
And sometimes it can be hard to accept a parent's decision, especially
Yeah,
medical decisions. But it's their life, and
it
our goal
is.
is to support and help. If a parent says, I don't want any treatment for this disease that I have,
Mm-hmm.
that's their decision. It's a medical decision, and we have to honor that decision. Our job is not to try to convince them one way or the other. I don't think,
Yeah.
that's again, that's my personal opinion about it. Is it's our job as caregiver to help them get through this life.
Yeah.
Um, and one another thing, again, in my research and things I've seen too, is that it's awfully hard as a caregiver, as a child. Maybe you're not giving that care at home, at your home, but you're caring for your parent who's in their home, but you're checking up on things and making
Mm,
sure that things are going well. And that continual assessment and check-in, that can get kind of irritating, and I have known people that they're just tired of they don't want their kids to come over because they know they're checking to see the expiration date on their milk, and whether
right.
they've got, what it is, the bathroom clean enough, and, all of
Yeah.
that. And we have to check those things as caregivers, but we have to be careful in the way that we do them so that it's not demeaning, and
Mm,
doesn't give the impression that I know you don't know how to take care of yourself. Here I am to save the day, kind of a thing.
right.
And quite often, what we need to do is just look, and
Yeah.
instead of grilling and asking the question, what did you have for supper last night, and are you just eating cereal every night, things
Right.
like that. We just need to let them just notice, let them tell us, because when you assess somebody and you're evaluating constantly, either you're going to find what you want and then move from there, or else that's going to be so irritating and upsetting that the parent's not going to want to see you. It's just
Mm,
easier if they just
hmm.
call you. You just call me and I don't want you to come by. And so you don't, that's not what you want. That defeats the purpose. So
Yeah.
you have to figure out a way, to both assess your parent and not irritate them as well.
Right. Good advice.
Helicopter parents we've heard a lot about, but
Yeah.
quite often there are helicopter kids with senior with their parents, and that are, I don't think you ought to be driving. I don't think you need to be doing that. You don't need to take that trip. You don't need to, and just hovering over them and trying to make decisions for them. And that overprotectiveness can begin to be irritating to parents who are still used to protecting and taking care of their children. Cindy, you're not quite old enough to be at that. I can have not too long ago. One of the kids would be doing something, and I would think, "Oh, I can do that." And I think, "Wait, no, I can't. I'm old.
Oh, yeah.
I'm too
Yeah.
old to jump in and do that, but I still want to, because
Yeah.
that's the parent role." But we have to be careful not to honor that and not try to become that to them, because it gets irritating.
Yeah.
And
That's tricky ground, like on the driving and everything.
yeah, it
Boy,
really
that's
is.
tricky for them. Do they know how well they're driving now?
Mhm.
And yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Honoring their autonomy on making decisions, but not wanting to, have them endanger anyone else or themselves. These are
It's it,
hard judgment calls.
it is really hard, and it makes caregiving really difficult, which is why, that's why there's a burden to it as well as a blessing. But
Yeah, and as far as the assessment, Isla, sometimes if an external person outside the family gives the, assessment, like if a doctor could determine, like,
right.
yeah, your vision is not where it needs to be to keep you safe driving a car.
Hmm.
If those kinds of boundaries happen outside of within the, that the family isn't
Right.
enforcing these things, but it's a professional has said this thing
Yep.
that's good for you,
The
that
a
would be
gentleman
handy.
an older gentleman I met recently, he said the doctor took away his keys. Doctor
That's
told
the
him he
thing.
couldn't drive, and he was mad with. I mean, with the doctor,
Yeah.
and he said, "Well, I guess that's probably right." But he wasn't mad with his wife, and he wasn't mad with his kids. He was put out with the doctor, but so much better. He didn't have a relationship with the doctor that makes a difference. So,
Right, right,
but
right.
again, keep that relationship strong. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what really matters.
Yes.
Um, because parents, the elderly, us, we older people, we want to keep our independence as much as we can, and we should listen to suggestions, but
Yeah.
we still need to make those decisions. And sometimes you just have to say, it's your life, so
Yeah.
you'll have to do it. But but we had to be really careful as helicopter kids, because parents will begin to hide stuff, and
Oh,
they'll not, that happens.
yeah.
They'll not feel well, but they won't say anything because they know the kids are going to get excited and they're going to want them to go to the nursing home right away, or make me go to the hospital, or things like that. So again, there's that balance. Do you do,
Hmm.
too much, not enough? So, and ultimately it comes out to, it's their life. If you're taking care of your parents, it's their life.
Yeah.
Um, and another hard thing for us to do is to be honest with one another, with yourself too, and with one another about your needs and your wants, and the things that you will do and won't do, your concerns and your fears for your parents, and their concerns and fears for themselves. But we have to, again, communication. We have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to communicate that to
Hmm.
others. And again, the last one that I don't think I can emphasize too much, you need to make plans and arrangements early rather than late. Quite
Hmm.
often people get into giving care, because the parent has had some crisis, again, fallen off that cliff, and now they've got to jump in and do something. But nobody, the child doesn't know what the parent wants or expects or anything, because they haven't talked about it. So it's
Yeah.
better to, as much as you can, be honest about that. Do you want to take them in your home? Do you want to go into your children's home? Would you rather make other arrangements? Just so that your
Yeah.
wishes are known.
Yeah, while emotion is not heightened by a very stressful event. Yeah,
Hmm.
having those
Exactly.
conversations as early as possible. I love that idea. Um, I guess speaking of conversations, one thing that I did later in my mother's life, earlier in the program, you talked about like real practical ideas. This is one I could put it in the comment section later, but I pushed the record button in my phone and interviewed my mom. I think I have 8 hours of our conversations, and it was such a treasure. And that is another something special you could do if the days are kind of long and a little bit empty as you're caregiving and it's quiet, to interview your parents. So I've got some questions that I asked my mom that maybe other people, if they're sitting by their parents' side. It was just so special to have a recording of her voice and her wisdom that I can listen to whenever I want. So
That's an
I love
excellent
that.
idea.
I guess
Excellent idea.
the only other thing I guess I'd like to say before we wrap it up is that I would suggest in the course of caring for your parents, you learned some things. What things, and you and I even had this conversation one-on-one in
Hmm.
person, Isla, really good conversation. What did I learn in the course of caring for my parents as they passed on to the next life? Things that I don't want my kids to have to go through, or things that didn't go as well as they could have. And then to communicate your wishes, even if you're like 20 or 30 years out, you could write down what you learned and what your preferences are based on
Hmm.
those experiences.
Excellent. Those are excellent ideas to really communicate with your parent. And one of our viewers had a good suggestion,
Okay.
and said, keep in touch with your, a hairstylist. If your parent goes to a hairstylist,
Yeah.
that's a person who sees them regularly, and
Uh-huh.
notices something about them. And that's a really good idea. Somebody who sees them, maybe the person who does cleaning for them, or
Yeah.
different things like that, that they're not, I mean, they're not assessing them for care, but still they notice things. And
Yeah,
so
yeah. Your
that's a
mom
really
looks
good
like she's
idea.
doing well. She seems really alert,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's nice
Yeah.
to, yeah, have an somebody who only sees them periodically. They're able to really see differences, I guess, if it's every 8 weeks or something. So yeah, that's
Right.
very useful to have more loving eyes on the people
Yeah.
that we love. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent notions today, and really good ideas this evening. And as Cindy said, as we wrap up our program, we just wanted to tell you that giving care for your parents can be really difficult, but there are so many blessings in it for you, and something for us to all consider in life. And that, again, God's responsibilities for us, and then the promises and the blessings that he allows for that as well. So any other closing comments that you had, Cindy, for tonight?
Just that I feel like I'm sort of like, remember in Star Trek in the 70s, there was the guy that was like half dark and half light, only I think it went like this way. Tonight, I'm kind of, this is my Star Trek 1970s look tonight.
It's like you're wearing a mask, right here. So.
Absolutely. This is the best I could do. I'm off the side of the road in Montana. So yeah, I don't know what I could have done, but let's just call it the 70s Star Trek version tonight.
I think it looks good. I like it. Well, my background is because I'm out in Texas visiting my oldest daughter, Beth, and her family. So
sweet.
So it's, so we're just here and there all the time. So
yep, doing what we can.
Next week, Cindy, you're bringing us a lesson on kindness.
Yes, on the 12 virtues. So yeah, I think I've got about 4 more of those, and so we'll wrap that up, and then in next year we're going to do something called 12 foundations, and it's going to be very, very conversational. So that'll be great. Allison's going to join us for those, so we're going to have some great conversations.
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to all that, next week's lesson and so on. So we've got some really good things lined up in the times to come. So next week, Thursday night, 8:00 again, Eastern time. Be sure to join us for Older Women Likewise. And as you see on the screen, if you've got questions or comments about caregiving that you would like for us to address, please send us a message. We would love to share with you, and we'd love to hear what you and read what you can share with us and with others as well on the subject. Tuesday nights, be sure to listen to Answering Religious Error, Keeping My Head On Straight. The guys are bringing some great lessons for us. And then on Wednesday, they're answering questions at noon. You send them your religious questions, and they are doing a great job of answering those questions. So thank you all so much for being with us this evening. And it's been such a pleasure to be with you again, Cindy, and just
great lesson, Isla. Thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, absolutely. Good night, everybody.
Good night.